Hello and welcome to the Medical Affairs Dialogues. In this episode, we want to explore how agentic AI is reshaping MSL roles by taking over routine tasks. And if that is so, then what happens to the future of scientific engagement and strategic impact? Let's find out. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome our guest today. Our guest for this episode is Dipanwita Das. Welcome to the episode, Dipanta.
Hi, thank you very much, Prototi, for having me on this episode. I know you and I have been talking for some time, and I'm very excited to be sharing some of our learnings and some of my ideas with you today.
And like I said before we started rolling, it is an absolute pleasure, and I welcome you to this episode. I want to introduce you to my audience first. Dipanta is the CEO and co founder of Sorcero, a leading AI company serving top global pharmaceutical firms with advanced analytics and medical insights. She's an award winning entrepreneur and she holds 6 biomedical AI patents and has partnered with Google and Springer Nature. Thank you, Dipanta, for being a part of this episode. Our topic for today is the empowered MSL. What happens when agentic AI handles the routine? Before we go any further, Dipanta, I have actually, tell you, I've curated a very interesting list of questions for you for this session. But before we go further, I want to pause and just for my audience, lay out your career journey, lay out the challenges you faced, and how did you navigate through them?
Well, thank you. That's a big question, and it's always an interesting one to answer. Sitting where I am today, so I have spent my career at the intersection of data and analytics as it applies to a number of different fields, from public health to business intelligence to PR to journalism. And one of the things that has remained consistent through that experience and through my career is the importance of taking good decisions, and the fact that without excellent data, good decisions are very hard to take, even if you are an expert. So, whether you're deciding how to draft a great public policy, or whether you're trying to decide how to engage your stakeholders more effectively as a brand or as a pharma company,
Mhm.
the quality of the data and how that information is presented to that expert who is taking a decision really drives the excellence of it. And that's really what brought me to Sorcero. Before I started Sorcero, which now has been, oh my God, 7 years ago, I ran a digital firm, a digital consulting and strategy and software firm out of Washington, D.C. And a part of my task was to build communications or messaging platforms for some of the largest public health campaigns in the world. And when I did that work, I did not have software. We were attempting to bring together public health information, medical data, population health metrics, social determinants of health to train people across 20 different countries on to how to make a case for better policies and better habits around tobacco control and road safety. And honestly speaking, that was not the best set of tools. And because of that, it took me a really long time and us a really long time to understand whether our campaigns were succeeding, whether stakeholders were engaged. And often we'd feel like we're running blind, sometimes for
Mhm.
years. And my interest in pharma came from there. I wanted to understand how a pharma company, when they take a drug to market, is measuring the uptake of that product in real time, adopting leading indicators of the success of their engagement rather than lagging. And I found, much to my surprise, both the opportunity but also an area of concern that many of our customers feel like they're running a bit blind for too long in a world where we have very sophisticated data and analytics to sell shoes.
Wow. Yeah, quite a role. Okay. To, to set the context and get the conversation going, my first question to you is how do you define agentic AI and how is it uniquely suited to empower medical affairs, particularly MSLs?
That's a great question. So I like to use the metaphor of the orchestra, right? And at the end of the day, an agent should be thought about as an individual or a single unit. And that person, that unit, in this case, a piece of software, has been trained or tuned to understand and to work on a particular task or to be focused on a particular data source. So if you think about the average MSL, when they take a decision or when they prepare a piece of content to engage with an HCP or KOL, their colleagues, or anyone else at all, they are not looking at one source of information. They are on average looking at 13 to 15 to 21 different sources. And I can tell you our customers have a plethora of it. And then in addition to that, they're bringing to bear their own expertise and their own experience. So at the point a decision is being made, think about it as 21 different units of 21 different data sources coming together, and then a human being, an expert, taking a
Mm-hmm.
decision. So when you think about a piece of software that is going to advise you or to guide you on to how to take a decision, if you have one piece or one agent, that will perform best on only one data source. The
Mm-hmm.
power of agentic AI, really, for us and how our system works, is there is almost one for every data source. So when an expert is trying to take a decision or asking a question, and I put it in air quotes for very good reason because things are not chat, you have that answer, that question being thrown across the entire framework, all a little bit of the supporting information for that final response coming from all of those sources. Then on top of it, you have someone else or another agent checking for hallucination, checking for accuracy, checking for other things that will support the veracity of the decision making, and then throwing it out at the expert so that they can take a decision. If you didn't have 21 different units working in concert, again, think of an orchestra,
Mm-hmm.
you only have a one shot chance at it. And the chances are the quality of the information that's been surfaced to you to support your decision is not going to be that good. And that's the most important thing, because really excellent decisions are taken at the intersection of many different types of data and will change every time you add a new
Mm-hmm.
data source. And we often forget that.
Beautifully put. Um, like I learned so much from that answer. I'm very sure my audience is learning with me. So that brings me to my next question. I want to understand your perspective on this particular aspect, and that's why I'm presenting this question to you. In your view, what does it truly mean for an MSL to be empowered in today's AI driven world? I know you said about the layering and the orchestra, but for an MSL, lay out the story for us.
That's a great question. My interest in supporting medical affairs from the very beginning of Sorcero's journey was driven by the fact that I believe, and I think the industry agrees, that the medical model of commercialization, where medical and scientific information drives adoption, is really where everything goes, right? Because whether I'm a physician, a patient, or I'm a payer, I want to know that this is a scientifically
Mm-hmm.
sound decision. And there isn't really anyone else that I can see in that company who has that expertise. So the empowered MSL, to me, has kind of two parts to it. There's a point of information collection, so the engagements you're having with your stakeholders, whether it's virtual or whether it's in person. And then there is separately the decisions you're taking, maybe once you quote unquote come back to work and you're sitting down with your team to look at the information you've gathered to then decide what the next step in your campaign is. So I'm going to divide it up into two. So when an MSL is engaging with an individual, the most important thing for them is to know or to understand that individual. And when we talk about understanding an individual, I'll actually go back to the world of retail a little bit to give you a sense of how much these brands know us. So, again, if I was a retail company, I would know where my customer lives, what kind of buying behavior they have, what their income bracket is, a bunch of other data points that are not so relevant to life sciences, but but are symbolic of understanding, which drives personalization. For an MSL, that could be things like what that person is studying, what they're writing about, who they're collaborating with, what their career journey has been, what they've published or written about across 45 different sources of data, what their previous engagements historically across, let's say, years of engagement with a brand has been. All of that has to be presented in a single space for an MSL to know precisely how to engage, let's say, in this case, Dr. Ganguly. Today, the MSL does not have that information in one place. Maybe they've got a report that someone's written them saying, hey, talk to Dr. Ganguly at so and so time of the day. Okay, but they don't know what that person's interactions with that brand has been. They don't know if they're negative on the safety profile, but potentially neutral on the efficacy. What will really move the needle? So the first role of a software driven system in AI is to be able to compute all of these data sources across time and channels and present a very succinct, accurate, verifiable picture of the person you're engaging with, whether
Mhm.
you're doing it virtually or not. So you can engage with them in confidence. You don't go to them with irrelevant information. That's number one. And that will influence the quality of the information you gather for them. So if you're running a survey, it'll be much more accurate. If you're asking them a question, it'll be much more accurate. And then the quality of the data you collect will be, again, much more accurate and much more dependable. So then you come to the second part, which is I have collected all of that information. Field teams, surveys, advisory boards, CRM notes, wherever it is, right? Publications for that matter, which we often don't think of as a
Mhm.
source of data, but is an extremely valuable source of data. But you throw pubs in and clinical trials and all of that. When you look at that all together, you can tell if you've moved your targets at all. Did they go from negative to neutral? Did they go to neutral to positive? Where are they getting stuck? What do I need to do to move the needle forward? Do I need to inform my safety team or do I need to talk to my clinical team for more data? That is what an excellent decision making is, whether that's MSLs or directors or at any level. And our goal is to bring to bear that system, both at the data level and at the analytics. And then the last bit of that is standardizing measurement. How do you measure successful engagement? And we all know that we don't have standardized metrics for these things. And standardized metrics is interesting here because it's
Mhm.
not a number. It's actually a formula. Think of it as at least an algebraic formula that captures the business logic with the the business logic of the company with the expertise of the individual taking the decision and then assigning different, let's say, at least weightage to the different data sources. So there's work needs to be done in developing that math as well. And when all of that comes together, you have an MSL that can take decisions with confidence.
No, very well put together. And I want to quickly share a nugget here. Because of my scientific training, when I interact with an HCP, I do exactly what you just laid out for the empowered MSL. Because of that cognition of where the headspace is, what might interest them, instead of throwing things at the HCP, seeing what will kind of move the needle or hook with that HCP, I have been able to kind of talk to the HCP in such a manner, impactful manner, that I was able to initiate an investigator initiated trial. And that's the metrics, that's the needle you want to move, right? That's an empowered MSL. So I can totally believe this, and I know those who are experiencing it, the MSLs, they will nod right now saying what we are talking right now. That's how an empowered MSL is, and that's how powerful science is and the engagement is. So I truly believe this, and this is great that we are able to capture in this meeting, in this session. So I want to highlight some tangible value of agentic AI, and hence this question to you. Which routine or cognitive heavy tasks are most efficiently handled by agentic AI? And how does that free up an MSL? Like we say, okay, then the MSL can focus on strategic engagement that will bring strategic value.
Yeah.
The scientific engagement will be more meaningful. So, talk to us about it a little bit more.
That's a great question. So I think in the world of medical affairs, there are a couple of sort of use cases that are very popular with our customers. I think first is the medical insights management as a category, which is just one use case. You know, there are
Mhm,
many, 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 and then we can talk ad nauseum about the definition of insights, but we leave that for another day.
mhm,
But assuming that the definition of insight for the purposes of this conversation is something that helps you take a decision, in Sorcero's definition, if it doesn't help you take a decision in one way or another, it's not really an insight. But one of them is actually being able to compute or analyze all of these data sources across time and channel. That's important. Longitudinal analysis of information along with covering the full breadth of relevant data, whether it's internal to a company and has been collected internally, whether it's external to the company and it could be third party, or in some
mhm,
cases, whether it's data that you've bought or subscribed to, right? So there are at least three categories of data that are coming together. And let me just tell you, it is no mean feat to architect a platform that can handle this at scale and do it in a verifiable way. So the software, I'm just ignoring the software burden for now and just talking about the experience.
mhm,
The first thing, and this has been on record with a couple of our customers is already, is one is that the amount of time it takes them to get to the point is reduced by at least 85 to 92%. They get what they need right away. They can log in, they can get their sense of it, or they can run a couple of queries, or they can go through their recommendations and their charts, their dashboards, their analysis, and get to it. That's number one. Second, and more interesting, is that it is in some cases it is they've already changed their decision that they would have taken if they didn't have all of this data in front of them. And that, I think, it really gets to the heart of it. So for insights is one, it's faster and more effective, it's more efficient, and you can look
mhm.
through everything. And the second is that because you have everything in front of you, you're changing how you would have operated. And that's both very important. I think the second use case is around KOLs. And I'm using KOLs because KOLs are sometimes not prescribing physicians, they're
Yep.
KOLs.
Mhm,
And with the world of KOLs, one of our focus areas has been to help our customers develop a leading indicator. And this is why scientific sentiment is so important. Scientific sentiment is our proprietary analytic that we built over years of research with our customers, which is a proxy for medical affairs organizations to be able to say, yes, I have moved the needle with this person, even though the quantitative evidence for that movement might come out of a different team or a different data source that they're not even allowed to look at, or might even come out 2 years later or 8 months later after that engagement has happened. But medical affairs on an ongoing basis needs to know, am I moving the needle? That's one.
mhm,
Number two, they need to know who else they should be talking to. And that comes out of the knowledge graph of the KOLs that we have, their inner relationships, what's happening in the world outside. So that segmentation piece, but again, on an ongoing basis, not in a moment of time, and across time and channels and longitudinally is really important. So our MSLs are able to see whether over a 2 year period they have moved the needle, or a 6 month period, or on a meeting to meeting basis. And this is a huge area of
mhm,
continued investment for us. And the third, of course, is field medical excellence, which is what I was talking about in my earlier answer question about how well are you engaging. And so this piece is helping them ask better questions, gather the right information. Because if you haven't collected the right data, the analysis, it doesn't matter if you have AI, BI, or something else entirely, because these things are all tools. So those are sort of the three buckets in which our customers will see a lot of value, have seen a lot of
mhm.
value, and have seen that impact come out. And having an agentic framework, having really well tuned AI, or having AI models that have the business logic of our customers in it really help them have the trust but verify um, experience.
Yeah, I totally agree to that. So now we want to Through our question, we want to demonstrate the impact in a results driven way. And I want to ask you, what are some measurable outcomes, such as increased HCP satisfaction, reduced prep time, or faster insight generation, that you've observed with AI integration? You were
Mm,
talking the metrics, right? Now let's talk about that.
sure.
Elaborate on it.
So that's great. So let's start with the efficiency, the operational efficiency piece, right? And the operational efficiency our customers have experienced have actually not just been on the medical side. We also serve safety teams, we also serve SciComs teams, right? And we're starting to serve access teams as well. So the operational efficiency, less review time. There's an 88% decrease in review time for literature analysis. In the accuracy, there's a jump from the 89.2% to almost a 96.1%. Data indexing is in minutes versus months. So real time insight surfacing versus manual. Right? So once your data is in, on the safety side, adverse event detection jumps up by 272% and speeds up signal detection by 5 months. And then faster regulatory submissions, which is just being able to synthesize evidence faster and produce compliant plain language summaries or regulatory submissions. So you've got all of these kicking in. This is just in the operational efficiencies that come out of having a system that A, has all of your data, B, is AI driven, and C, actually is measuring accuracy. So this is on the operational efficiency side. I think your second question was around HCP satisfaction increase. We know that there's a 6.7x increase in HCP satisfaction when the content that they're being served up is personalized to them, but is also actually written in the right grade. And this is pretty interesting. It's a bit nerding out, so you'll bear with me for like 10
Yeah,
seconds.
I would love that. I would
But
love it.
readability is really important. And whether an HCP is an HCP, of course, is a trained medical doctor. However, when they're consuming very high volumes of very diverse and new science, managing the reading grade of that material is really important to increase comprehension and uptake of that information. So one of the things we do in our content generation workbench is we have those readability grades built in. So we're not just producing content that is compliant from a regulatory standpoint, but is actually much more readable. And that increases HCP satisfaction with those engagement and with that content 6.7x. So far, that's what we've seen. And then the third one is what I talked about, is actually changing strategy itself, where our customers will come back and said, we are doing things differently based on this information. And we believe that's going to lead to better results.
Yeah, I love that. We are doing things differently, and that's going to lead to better results. Great. Now we want to focus and pivot towards addressing something that I had asked this question to Matt Lewis, who's also an AI leader in the space.
Yes.
And he was featured as one of our guests few months back. And we asked and addressed the critical issue of trust, ethics, and compliance. With
Mm-hmm.
you, I want to go a little bit deeper in it.
Sure.
So, my question is, how do you ensure that AI powered recommendations and insights maintain scientific accuracy and regulatory compliance in medical affairs?
How long do you have? Um, and I mean that seriously, not just
No, I
because I
know.
have a lot to say, but because it is a very multi layered question. So I'm going to start bottom up. One is the architecture of the software system. It is very, if you go by marketing, it will tell you you can throw a chatbot on a bunch of data and it will just produce magic for you. I cannot emphasize the level of risk with that easy approach. My studied analysis after 7 straight years of doing this, and we have been working with, we started working with transfer learning models all the way back, and we're still doing this. is the
Mhm.
easier the solution, the more risk it is. If it is not
Absolutely.
a higher
Absolutely.
barrier to entry, trust me, that's not doing it. So one is,
Mhm.
how is the system architected? From a data privacy standpoint, to things like, are they segregating data between different customers? So if you've got multiple pharma customers, how are you protecting each customer's private data? How are the models being deployed? What are they trained on versus what are they tuned on? Where are they hosted? So there's a lot just there in the data privacy regulatory. Then there's data residency, which is, if you're working with a pharma company, which is inherently an international entity, you have very different data residency requirements, let's say around UK and US. Not all clouds are pre-configured as such. So your system has to respond to that. And we, for example, have to go through security and privacy and compliance with every one of our customers. We do not have customers who have not put us through those spaces before they kind of give you your first party data. So
Mhm.
there is that. Then is actually having provable benchmarking of all of the models and algorithms running through your system. So we do federated. So we have multiple models running through our systems that are all tuned to do different tasks. And we measure and benchmark constantly their performance, and I mean constantly. It's just a live
Mhm.
benchmarking on whether they're failing, whether they're maintaining certain accuracy standards. We'll hot swap a model if one is starting to fail or one is starting to break.
Okay.
So next is, foundational model companies do not offer service level agreements the way standard software does. So as the application layer, we do, which means you have to have the infrastructure to make sure that there is fail safes. That's just all happening way before anything touches the customer. Then, when it comes to the customer, it's trust but verify, right? So, when you produce a recommendation, how are you justifying that recommendation on screen in that customer experience? Do your users have the ability to get excited about an answer, but still double check the citations or the sources, whether it's coming from first party data, second, third, fourth, all of that combined? And we have to build that in as well. And then let
Mhm.
me run you through a couple of things. One is specialized agents that validate sources, verify answers against evidence, rank source credibility, as well as cross reference findings. This goes back to the importance of the agentic framework. Next, we've actually built the platform to specialize in life sciences, which means the entire every bit of AI is tuned on the scientific data pool, which was our scientific data pool, which is the largest scientific data set. So there is no way it's going to create something or generate something. It will not hallucinate. It cannot. It's a closed system. Next, it's GXP and GVP compliant with a very robust audit trail, so we can produce that if required. Every insight is source attributed. And then it is the system will surface compliance risks instantly. So, for example, a common one could be presence of PHI. Not something you think about like
No.
that, but it
Mhm.
happens in real life. And so a system that can detect it, protect it, has deletion procedures, all of that. So we do a lot of this in order to produce a recommendation for a human expert.
This is so overwhelming. I now understand what you meant.
It is very overwhelming, and I am being very breezy about this. This is extremely important. And if we don't take it seriously now, we take on the risk of setting our customers back by years, because if there's something goes off, the price to pay can be very high. So the system has to be architected ground up, keeping security, data privacy, auditability in mind. And of course, like I said again, trust but verify, right? This is why we serve experts. What our system produces can very rarely be understood by a layperson and used by a layperson. It is designed for experts.
Yeah, greatly, like great tagline. Trust, sorry, you said trust but
Trust but verify.
verify. Trust but verify. Love it. And please remember this because we all use AI in many, many forms and multiple times in the day. So please remember this: trust but verify. Beautifully put. I know that, Dipanta, you have collaborated with companies like Google and Springer Nature. So my question is, I'm intrigued to know, how have these partnerships influenced AI capabilities for the medical affairs team in pharma and for your clients?
That's a great question. So, we have a much publicized and very celebrated partnership with Google. Google has been our partner of choice first from a technology standpoint, and now also from a GTM standpoint for lots and lots of reasons. Of course, Google is the market leader in many ways of science and of AI itself, and we believe that when we're delivering solutions to experts, we partner with the very best. And Google to us has a couple of things. One is we are able to work with some of the model teams and kind of verify the models that are coming out and check for quality before it goes into implementation. They have some of the best infrastructure for really deploying models, both Google models as well as others. And that's been a huge help to us in having the infrastructure to do the trust, the fallbacks, the benchmarking, the observability. All of this has been really, really important. And also, from just a data privacy and cloud storage perspective, they have some of the best international regulation and data residency infrastructure. I don't need to like nerd out fully about this on this one, but there are some implications there. But really, we like to partner with brands that come to the table with trust first. And Google to us definitely is that. And I think in healthcare and life sciences, whether you think about DeepMind or AlphaFold, it is definitely where the scientists go. And so that's that. Springer Nature also is one of those brands. They are not
Mhm.
just one of the oldest in the world, but they value science and they value open access. And those two are very important to us. Science is for the benefit of all humanity, and we think that our partnership with Springer Nature, where we are co-creating and taking the safety solution to market together, means that we get the best of the data with their years, like decades of
Mhm.
experience in safety and in adverse event detection. And then we can bring to bear our extremely modern, powerful platform. And it's a great marriage. And so, yeah, we have some great partnerships, and we think that it brings our customers the very best and the most trustworthy.
Yeah, I agree. And I totally agree with your response. And congratulations on those partnerships because I think these associations just goes to say that you're so serious about it and you are giving and serving the best for your clients.
The
So,
compliance part of Google Cloud is just
absolutely.
really, really, really important.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah, so now we have reached to the last question. I know our audience will be inspired by this discussion. And I truly believe that you are a visionary. And as a fellow medical affairs leader, my question to you is, looking ahead, how do you see agentic AI reshaping the MSL role in the next 5 to 10 years? And what excites you the most about that future?
Well, that's a great question. First, uh, my team and our customers are the real experts here. And I think without that partnership, we would not be where we are today and will certainly not go where we need to go. But when I think about the empowered MSL and one that can really live up to their mission, the thing that drove them to become an MSL at all in the first place, first and foremost is proactive intelligence. We see AI as being able to deliver proactive, context aware insights directly into the MSL workflows and into their decision making workflows. That is both anticipating their questions and helping them get ahead and identify emerging trends. That's a big one. I think number two is cross functional integration. Medical affairs does not work in silo. It informs and is informed by many, many, many other functions across life sciences. And I think the agentic framework, as well as other important workflow collaboration tools, will enable medical affairs to collaborate with their teams much more effectively, connecting to clinical development, to strategies, impacting R&D direction,
Mhm.
impacting safety monitoring and access. And we really see a convergence in how these products are taken to market and really touch the patient. I think next is real time. Real time ecosystems are important. A sophisticated AI can continuously monitor and analyze data from field reports, advisory boards, CRMs, medical
Mhm.
literature, social media. We want to make sure that every one of our users feels entirely armed for every interaction they're having and every decision they're taking. And last but certainly not the least is a competitive advantage. Purpose built AI is becoming integral in our shared industry, is already integral in many others. But these are very high value workflows and very high
Mhm.
value decisions. And we want to make sure that the decisions that our customers are taking that will lead to patients getting access to these treatments much faster are really trustworthy and bankable in every sense of the word. And we see all of that coming together because, that's what AI is really good at, computing large volumes of data very fast, and very efficiently.
Beautifully put. Thank you, Dipanita. This was powerful and this is so informative. And I had fun talking to you.
I had a lot of fun as well. Thank you again for considering me for your podcast. I hope this is useful to your audience.
I'm very sure this will be very useful. Um, Thank you all for tuning into the Medical Affairs Dialogues. I hope our discussion has kind of pushed you to think about that agentic AI is handling routine tasks. So then what is it doing to the MSL? The MSL can now focus on what matters to it, which is scientific engagement and strategic value. I hope this episode will be useful for MSLs and our medical affairs professionals. Until next time, stay tuned, stay engaged, and stay empowered.